about biases in the workplace. So I do this a lot outside of school my entire life. I love to travel. And of course, during COVID, I've not been able to travel other than zooming around the world. But I do love to travel and I love to really enjoy new cultures. I don't do this alone. This is my beautiful wife. I think it's very important for you guys to kind of see how I show up, just a little bit about myself. And here's our little two fur babies. And I'm happy to announce in about maybe about 2 more weeks, we'll have our first human coming into our life. My son will be born at the end of February. So right now we reside here in Bentonville, Arkansas, and this is home of Walmart, also home of JB Hunt in Tyson, and that's where I currently also work as well. And in Arkansas, you may be asking, why do people even call me this bow tie guy? And so to me, the bow tie is larger than like a necktie. You know, it came to me as I travel locally and globally, whether I'm going to Walmart or going to another country, people will like stop me and ask me about my necktie. And they ask me how, did I tie it myself? Why do I wear it? And it's usually positive comments. And then I started to think, I had this epiphany that, what if we lived in a world where people would genuinely stop what they're doing to be curious about another human being that they never met before, just like they have done my bow tie. And so years and years ago, I started to, really create this philosophy of how to engage humans from different backgrounds through connections and through interaction. And so also what I did was I created an acronym of how to have effective conversations and presentations. And I'm going to share it with you because you guys are going to be with us all day. And if you like it, you can really continue to use it. So here's what the acronym stands for, the bow tie acronym. So the first letter of the word bow tie is the letter B. In any conversation, today's discussion, I need you to be mentally present, okay? So mentally present. I know that we're all physically in our own spaces and virtually connected, but I need you to be mentally present. Okay, the next letter of bow tie is the letter O, and O stands for openness. It's going to be things that you hear throughout the entire discussions today from various companies, and I ask that you just have an open mind and open heart. The next letter of bow tie is the letter W, which stands for willingness. Willing to engage, share your own story, participate, because I believe that everyone on this call has a unique story, and it's up to you to share it. So make sure you engage. And the hardest part of a necktie, and I'm not sure if we have any bow tie wearers on the call today that's listening, but the hardest part of a necktie is usually this knot in the middle. And as you know, people always ask me, like, how do you get this little knot to work? And my friends, I've seen that's the hardest parts of conversations like this, is how do you tie it together? TIE. And so I really do think if you be here, be open, be willing, but most importantly, take notes, engage, so you can tie it together. That's the bow tie philosophy. So if that makes sense to you, in the chat box, I want you to write the word bow tie. I'm going to see if we're going to have a bow tie conversation because we're kicking this thing off the right way. So in the chat box, I want you to write the word bow tie if that makes sense. All right, I got my first bow tie, my second. Oh yes, I love it, I love it, I love it. Let's go. Okay, so we're talking about this diversity forum. What is diversity? Let's start there because it's so important that if we come into these conversations, we all come into these conversations very differently. So we need to really understand what these words mean. So what is diversity? Diversity is twofold. Diversity is visible and invisible differences that make someone complete. Okay, so you're looking at me right now. You see me on camera. You see a good looking brown guy over here with a bow tie on. That is my visible difference. Invisible, you may not know that I'm one of 13 kids. I can hablar español and falo Portuguese. I'm afraid of heights, but I love to jump on planes. So I just want you to know diversity is not all about the things you see on the outside. That is important, but also the things you don't see. Let's keep going. What is inclusion? Because we throw this word out a lot lately. Inclusion is very simple. Inclusion is creating an environment, a space where you respect all these visible and invisible differences, okay? And it doesn't really just stop there with respect. Also, you need to be able to have the environment and space where people are seen and heard. You may be asking, Dr. Jenkins, why did you put heard in your definition? Well, my friends, how many of you all know you can be doing a lot of talking, but that does not mean anyone is listening. So it's very important that as we strive for inclusive spaces, that people are seen and heard, they feel valued and they belong. but you can't really talk about true inclusion without talking about equity. And I work with a lot of leaders every day around the world, and a lot of business leaders, they understand, like business equity, but I'm talking about human equity. And also a lot of leaders tell me, hey, I'm just here to treat everyone equal and fair. And I want to just challenge you a little bit to think about, let's try to go for an equitable approach. And you say, well, what's the difference? Well, I use my shoe. This is my shoe. I wear a size 10 and a half brown shoe. And when it comes to equality, equality is like, Jessica, you get a shoe, Doc, you get a shoe. It's like Oprah, everybody gets shoes, okay? That is equality. But equity is giving everyone on this call a shoe that fits them. Now you got to think about that, because that means I really have to come and ask you, what size do you wear? Do you even want to wear a shoe, etc.? And so, my friends, it's very important that if we strive for equity, we want to meet people where they're at and give them the shoes and treat them how they wish to be treated, etc. Here's another great way of looking at the differences between equity and equality. You probably have seen this all across social media, so I'm not going to go through this very quickly, or I'm going to go through this very quickly. But these are the individuals that are trying to have access to see the baseball game. I know you probably have seen this, several people have, but do you know people still ask me, they say, so this whole initiative is all about propping up short people. So we had to go and like redesign this, because we know we're not talking about short people, but what we're looking at is not about height. We're looking at the structural barriers to opportunity. That's equity, and that's what we want to talk about. And we really want to examine that today. Like, what is the reality of this space? So why we're having this big forum today and why this is important to talk about in the workplace? Well, number one, it's a moral case, right? Diversity and inclusion is the right thing to do. That's what we hear. It's also a social case that, the world is changing, so we need to change as well. But as business leaders, it's also a business case. And whether you agree with the social or the morals, the business case have been able to be proven in a lot of research that if we get this right as business community, guess what? It will make us all bigger, better, and stronger together, right? It's a case where everyone is included, and guess what? Everybody wins, including older white gentlemen. It doesn't matter. So many times we talk about diversity, and so many people think we're only talking about women or people of color or disabilities, but we're talking about everybody in inclusion. And that's why we're moving from diversity to inclusion. Make sense? Okay, so you may be asking, well, Dr. Jenkins, isn't every business leader the number 1, 2, and 3 items on the list is to make more money or save money? Yes, you're exactly right. But I will tell you, as you go into the world, you will still see people wear the shirt very loudly about diversity and inclusion. They just don't care. They don't care about this. So I want to manage expectations, because everyone is on a different journey here. But let me tell you a little bit about the human brain, why some people may not care. Well, this is a great test. I encourage you to go write it down if you're taking notes, because I know I'm going pretty fast. It's the Harvard Implicit Association test. I'm actually on this team at Harvard, and it's a great test that you can go. It's free. Just Google it, and you can actually go test your assumptions and your associations. So go take this test. But I'm going to talk about why some people may not realize, their engagement or their lack of engagement in this space. Let me show you a couple of the results from the test from 2019. Okay, here's some of the categories. I can't go through it all because of time, but if you look at some of the categories, you can see that some of the respondents, let's just start with gender. 77% of the respondents who took this test across the US, aggregated data, more readily associated males with the careers and females with the family. Okay, let's go to race. 75% have an implicit preference for white people over Black people. This one is not up here, but I think it's interesting about age. 82% of respondents have a preference for younger people versus older people. So once again, I am just the person to report the stats to you. You can look at the board and you can interpret it how you wish. But my question to you, my friends, when we're talking about implicit association, if you would have woke up this morning and walked outside of your apartment, dorm room, or a resident hall or mansion, and this was on your front porch, I want you to write in the chat, what will you do? What will you have done? If this was on your front porch this morning. and go back to bed. Call 911, close the door, give it chicken treats. Oh my gosh, it's so hilarious because 95% of my sample size always tell me that they're going to shut the door, they're going to run. But also, it's another 5% lately have been saying, hey, guess what? Look at the little kitty. It's just smiling or yawning. I'm going to go out there and take a picture. I'm going to take a selfie. This is definitely a TikTok worthy video. We're going to make this thing happen. So anyway, it's very, very funny, but most times people will, they will fight or flee. And when you think about implicit associations, I want you to hear this. Your implicit association comes out mostly in 3 conditions. Okay. Condition number 1 is when you don't have all the information. Okay. You got to fill in the blank. Your implicit association shows up and shows out. Condition number 2, when you are forced to process something very, very quickly, okay? Your implicit association shows up and shows out. And last but not least, as you see today, when you have to fight or flee and you have to survive, your implicit association shows up and shows out. So it's not always meant to be bad, okay? It helps you navigate your everyday life. And I want you guys to know that about your implicit associations. But let me tell you something about the mind, because a lot of people tell me, say, Dr. Jenkins, we really, really want to change minds and about how people think about diversity. As a psychologist, I know that you can change people's minds, but also as a sociology discipline, I also know it takes a while to change someone's mind, and it's actually quicker to change someone's actions and how they behave versus their mindset. And so I want to encourage you not to get so caught up in trying to change everyone's minds, or your friends or your family or the people you work with, because at the end of the day, I really don't care how you think. I know you're like, what? But what I care about is how you behave. And do you behave in a way that you're really striving every day to be a diverse, equitable, and inclusive leader or peer or colleague, right? So that's what I want you to think about. Ask yourself, how am I behaving? What are my behaviors? What are my actions? As a college student, as an intern, as a person that's a new professional, what am I doing to make sure I build those actions? Let me tell you about the human brain, okay? Did you all know that we receive 11 million bits of information every second, but we can only consciously process 40? Guys, 27. The struggle is real. Let's stay with the 40 bits, okay? What does that mean statistically speaking? 99% of our daily operations is embedded in our unconsciousness. I mean, this is really mind-blowing, literally, okay? And you think about it, when you're driving on the road, you don't be thinking about anything else except for, but you're not thinking about anything else, but you're staying in line with those little lines on the road, right? Something is guiding that behavior, and that's your autopilot, right? Your unconsciousness. And it's several other examples that I can go through to really talk about how your unconsciousness just navigates your daily behavior. I mean, if you woke up this morning and brushed your teeth, you didn't even think about it, especially if it's a routine. Now, since we're in a pandemic and working from home, I don't know if you brush your teeth or not this morning, but you think about those conscious efforts. And usually what we see that you don't know that it's unconscious until something disrupted, right? Or it's like when you're driving on the road and someone cut in front of you. Now you have a disruption. And that's what we got to really think about with our unconsciousness, especially when we come to the word biases, because we have biases. It's a human thing, actually. And the interesting thing is a lot of our biases are unconsciousness. And this is not a black or white thing, right? This is a human thing. And you're biased, I am biased, but it matters because it can show up and it can hurt us even when we work with each other, as we go into our new jobs, or even who we choose to, even volunteer or projects, etc. It's very, very important to understand that we're all biased, okay? Now, what I want to tell you very quickly, because we have like 4 minutes and I'm going through this really quickly, is how do you continue to start this process of disrupting your biases, even if they're unconscious, because you're like, wow, I don't really even know what my biases are. Well, number one, let me tell you how you start with this inclusion work, okay? Because everyone asks me this all the time. Where do we start, Dr. Jenkins? Well, inclusion starts with the letter I. So many times, I know that's a data rocket science answer. There we go. It starts with yourself. It starts with asking the questions. How do I show up in this space? What is my inclusion story? Everyone on this call has a story. You had a time when you actually felt like you were excluded. Tap into that. How did that make you feel? Also, think about the things you don't know. What are you curious? Like the bow tie philosophy. What are you curious to learn about that's different than yourself? You have to examine self-awareness. That's the number one challenge in this space. A lot of people are just not aware of their biases and known and unknown. The next thing I got to say is that your environment, it really, really helps understand where you at in this space today. The things that you put in your head, the things that you're looking at night on Instagram, or the things that you're reading, the things that you're choosing to do or not do, that all plays into your conditioning behaviors. So that's why grandma say, be mindful who you hang out with and be mindful what you be reading and watching on TV, etc. Because these things are actually really embedded in your process. So just be mindful of that. The next thing I would say is give yourself some grace in this process. Okay, because we're all on a journey here, and it's a journey of maturity. You don't have to read every document or watch every documentary to feel like you have arrived. So really have an open mind and open heart in this process. And as emerging leaders, it's important for you to also have these conversations with your employers as you guys are looking for jobs or internships, etc. Because understand, it's not one destination for diversity and inclusion. It's a lot of ways to get there. And depending who's at the table, everyone shows up in this space differently. So I want to encourage you as you kind of move from diversity and inclusion and really understand about your unconscious bias, is really have the conversations with yourself and with your colleagues, as well as with people who look different than you. And I'm going to leave you with this thought. Jessica, I'm actually good. I'm almost at time at 2 minutes. I learned in this space today that we talked about a lot very, very quickly, but understand this, my friends, in this space of inclusion, a small change can make a big difference. Okay, a small change. So I want you to think about that. That's what I'm going to leave you with. What are some small changes you can continue to make a big difference? Because we need each other. People are watching you. So as you go throughout this entire forum today, really ask those questions to the employers or to the panels and to each other, but most importantly to yourself. What are you doing to behave in a way that you are striving for diversity, equity, and inclusion on and off the clock, when people are watching or when they're not? Because it takes a village to really do this work. And so I'm going to say thank you. I'm at time. I know that was very, very fast. That was a quick clip version of moving from diversity to inclusion, but hopefully it was something helpful. And here's my contact information, my friends. If you guys want to, I know we don't have time for Q&A today, but let's connect on social media, okay? I'm on Instagram, Dr. Bowtie Todd. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. If you want to, let's have a coffee chat and let's talk about these things. So enjoy the rest of your day. I know my colleagues are going to come in here shortly, talk a little bit more about JB Hunt. And also I will be back here at the end of the day on a panel to really talk about how diversity and inclusion is really changing the landscape in the workplace. But I love you all and I wish you all the best. And thank you so much, Louisiana, for hosting this. And I'm going to turn it back over to you all so you guys can finish the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. I don't think I'll ever look at a bow tie the same again. So thank you very much. Now we're going to look forward to seeing you again at 4 p.m. for our final panel discussion. And thank all of you guests for joining us. Have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you in the rest of our sessions throughout the day.